Caleb never expected one unanswered message to haunt him the way it did. For weeks he replayed it in his mind, the quiet buzz of his phone, the small flame of hope rising in his chest, and then nothing. No reply. No explanation. Just silence thick enough to bruise a man's confidence. He'd met Marissa only once at a church volunteer event in Denver, and something about her soft voice and tired smile had lingered with him. When she didn't answer his invitation for coffee, he told himself she simply wasn't interested, that he'd misread the warmth in her eyes. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that something about her silence felt different, heavier, as if a whole world lived behind it. Before the story continues, if you believe in kindness, compassion, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. It helps us reach more hearts just like yours. Caleb tried to let it go. He threw himself into work at the auto shop, picked up extra shifts, went on with life the way men are expected to. But some people drift into your thoughts like a whisper and stay there like a scar. Marissa was one of them. He didn't know why. He didn't know her story. He barely even knew her. Still, she felt familiar, like someone placed in his path for a reason he couldn't yet understand. On a gray, cold Thursday afternoon, Caleb stepped out of a hardware store downtown and spotted a small shape on the curb. A woman sat with her back against a building, her knees bent, her posture weary in a way that struck him immediately. Two young children, one boy, one girl, sat on either side of her, sharing food from white takeout boxes. Something about the woman's hair caught the light, and Caleb felt his chest tighten. It was her. Marissa, the woman whose silence he'd been wrestling for weeks. But what made him stop in his tracks wasn't the recognition, it was the scene itself. She wasn't just grabbing a quick bite. She looked exhausted, as if she'd been walking for hours. The children weren't chattering the way kids do when they're excited. They were quiet, focused, eating gratefully but carefully, as if they'd learned early in life not to waste a single grain. Caleb felt a strange rush of emotions, confusion, worry, something almost like guilt for assuming she'd simply ignored him. He walked closer, his steps slowing when he saw her offer the last spoonful from her own box to her daughter, not taking a bite for herself. He suddenly realized what he was looking at. A mother feeding her children leftovers. Not a picnic. Not a casual stop. This was survival dressed as normalcy. Marissa looked up, startled for a moment, and Caleb saw it clearly, the shadow of pride mixed with the fear of being seen at her most vulnerable. She straightened, brushed crumbs off her jeans, and gave him that same fragile smile he remembered. But this time it was stretched thin by life. Caleb felt something shift in him then, a quiet breaking that had nothing to do with rejection, but everything to do with understanding. In that moment, he no longer cared about the unanswered message. He cared only about the woman and the two small lives leaning against her, trusting her completely despite the storm she was clearly navigating. Marissa explained things slowly, not because she didn't trust him, but because the weight of the story seemed hard for her to lift. She'd left a difficult situation months earlier, and though she was working part-time, rent had risen, childcare cost more than she earned, and her car had broken down. She was trying, really trying, but some battles don't relent just because you have a good heart. She hadn't seen Caleb's message because her phone had been disconnected. She wasn't avoiding him. Life was. As she spoke, Caleb was careful not to pity her. He listened the way people listen when they know someone else's courage is greater than their own. He knelt down, so he wasn't towering above the kids, asked them gentle questions, made them smile. Marissa watched him with something like disbelief, as if kindness was a language she hadn't heard spoken fluently in a long time. Caleb offered to buy them a meal, a real one, but Marissa hesitated. Pride is heavy, even heavier when you're carrying children. He assured her softly that it wasn't charity. It was what any one human should do. Eventually she nodded, and they walked together to a small diner a block away. Inside, the warmth and the smell of grilled food felt like stepping into another world. The children's faces lit up, and for the first time, Marissa's shoulders eased. Over burgers and warm fries, the story of her struggle unfolded piece by piece. The night she'd left home, the months of sleeping on a friend's couch before she found a small room to rent, the daily grind of choosing between groceries and gas, the guilt of feeling like she wasn't doing enough, even though she was doing more than most people could bear. Caleb didn't interrupt. He didn't offer solutions too quickly. He simply sat there, grounding the moment with quiet presence. Later, when the kids were coloring on the diner's paper placemats, he offered to take a look at her broken car. Marissa's eyes filled before she could stop them, and she pressed a hand against her face, overwhelmed not by the enormity of her struggles, but by the unexpected gentleness offered in a world that had been anything but gentle. The next day, Caleb towed her car to his shop. What she thought would cost hundreds He repaired with a few replacement parts he had on hand, no charge. When Marissa insisted she repay him somehow, he only shook his head. Not everything in life is transactional. Some things are simply meant to be given. In the weeks that followed, Caleb found himself woven quietly into her world. He helped watch the kids when she had late shifts. She brought him sandwiches on his long workdays. They talked slowly at first, then openly, like two people learning to breathe again after being underwater too long. The children adored him, and he adored them in return, not as replacement for anything he lacked, but as blessings he never expected. Marissa grew stronger, not because Caleb saved her, she'd been saving herself for years, but because she finally had someone standing beside her, steadying the load instead of adding to it. Months later, standing in a small park at sunset, the kids playing on the swings, Marissa told Caleb that his message, the one she never saw, had come at a time when she truly believed no one would ever see her beyond her struggles. The fact that he stayed, that he showed up exactly when life was falling apart, felt like something more than coincidence. Caleb smiled softly, realizing that sometimes the greatest heartbreaks are simply misunderstandings wrapped in silence, and sometimes unanswered messages are answered in ways we never expect. On sidewalk, beside takeout boxes, between weary breaths and brave beginnings. As he took her hand, he understood something simple but life-changing. Rejection hadn't brought him to her that day. Compassion had. If this story has touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep creating meaningful stories for people who need them. Before the ending, please drop a comment below. Tell us where you're watching from and whether kindness has ever changed your life. And so, on an ordinary street in Denver, what began as a moment of embarrassment and misunderstanding transformed into a quiet miracle, proof that sometimes the most beautiful connections rise from places where hope seems almost lost and love grows gently in the smallest acts of kindness.